And it features characters from my very first romance novel called In Every Port. And their names are Kat and Jessica. You don't need to know anything about this story except that it's been 30 years since their story closed. So they're on this cruise, which is where all the stories take place, to celebrate their 30th anniversary. I think I've got a blister, but that hike was worth every step. Kat leaned into Jessica and closed her eyes. We actually stood on Lesbos. I'm blown away. Truthfully, Jessica's feet were throbbing too, but a soak in the ship's hot tub before the promised pastry extravaganza at dinner would make it all better. Some sips of the nice ruby port Harine had given them as a bon voyage gift would also be dandy. I wonder how Kitty is Jessica pointed a warning finger at Kat. We are not grandmothers. Therefore, do not mention grandchildren. We agreed. I know. It's hard not to wonder, though. Kat straightened up, her gaze fixed on the ship as they rapidly approached it in the passenger sea shuttle. Every day for the last 2 years nearly, we've been part of their lives. It's only right that Rob's parents get this week. I'm sure everyone is doing well. Jessica resolutely did not voice any of the many petty thoughts she found herself considering at the idea that Kitty and Hank might call someone else Meemaw. Kat squeezed her hand sympathetically. We were on Lesbos. Yeah, this was a great idea. And how sweet of the kids to give us this in anticipation of our 30th anniversary. I was just thinking of that bottle of port Harine gave us. Kat made a little purring noise. Now that sounds heavenly. A half hour later, they shared sips from a paper cup after they eased their sore bodies into the hot tub. Jessica closed her eyes and let the bubbles at her feet soothe her. We were on Lesbos, Kat said again. In her mind's eye, Jessica could picture the time-worn temple and the other landmarks of the island's history. Though there was nothing overtly welcoming to lesbian pilgrims, she had no trouble envisioning acolytes in gossamer gowns carrying laurel-scented water to wash the feet of the poetess. Her reverie was interrupted by the noisy arrival of 2 young women she recalled from the tour. They plopped in the water and sighed with relief. I'm whacked, one said. Totally. I'm still disappointed, though. All that dust and ruin, and that's what we're all called because somebody wrote some poems. The other woman fiddled with the spa jets. Poetry is dead. Jessica gave Kat a sidelong glance and then looked away with a deep breath. Actually, Kat paused to casually sip from the paper cup. Poetry's immortality is what allowed our foremothers to adapt the island's name to describe a society of women for women. Had not Sappho's verse survived, there's no telling what we'd be calling ourselves, and we might still be searching for a collective identity that allows us to bond and struggle for the advancement of our rights. Without the word lesbian, we'd not be on this cruise, or it would be called something else. The 2 women were looking at Kat as if she were speaking Greek, which might not be far from the truth. Jessica wiggled her toes in the bubbles and watched her beloved through her lashes. If you think about it, the words we use to describe our gender describe not what we are, but what we are not. Female, woman, not male, not man. In contrast, lesbian is an assertive word that states what we are in relation to ourselves and no other construct. Sappho's work and that of her contemporaries that survives indicates that her academy was likely only for women. Certainly in our modern age, we want to romanticize this as an act of feminist rebellion when she was a member of a family that was overall persecuted into exile. She chose to eschew that power of men thereafter, probably because it was one of them that brought the wrath of the rulers down on her. Societies run by women had nearly disappeared by Sappho's time. We look back at her academy, and we see it as a continuation of the line of matriarchy, a bright moment in a long, dark fall of women from their place of respect as givers of life. She took a sip from the cup of port. The poor young things were deer caught in Kat's headlights. That they were ignorant wasn't their fault. They obviously hadn't had Kat or a mother. I expected something more, one of them muttered. That's all I meant. Everybody goes on and on about her poetry. So little has survived, it's true, but has inspired our lives, for while I gazed, in transport tossed, my breath was gone, my voice was lost, my bosom glowed. Sounds like she had a pretty good time at some point, Jessica said drily. Kat splashed with water. Hush you. The other young thing cocked her head to one side. That sounds familiar. The voice lost and bosom glowed part. Those lines were used in one of the songs Marcy Chastain sang Sunday night. She found them inspirational. Marcy's so hot, the other said with a sigh. They slipped into conversation between them after that, and Jessica stole a glance at Kat, who was basking in the hot water with a satisfied smile. Leaning over, she said, I'm going to tell our daughter you used her honors thesis to scold 2 baby dykes in the hot tub. Kat snorted. Think they want to hear about how much of the dead poetry is in the song lyrics they enjoy every day? Given that the two girls were now making out, Jessica shook her head. You do have a good idea going, though. Kat gave her an amused glance. I'm all relaxed now. What about you? Jessica drained the cup of the last of the port. Well, I'm dandy. Kat was stripping off her swimsuit as Jessica sidled up behind her to nuzzle her neck. Want to be a little late to dinner? Is that what you have in mind? Kat wrapped Jessica's arms around her waist. They still fit together exceedingly well. Port, warmth, thoughts of licentious acolytes and glowing bosoms, and you an old lady. Dirty old lady. Kat turned in her arms and lifted her mouth. Thank goodness, because I'm one too. The days of romping across the bed and abandon had been over from the moment Jessica had first slipped a disc, and other delights were curtailed because Kat's knees protested 45-degree or sharper angles. They had always been au naturel when it came to lovemaking, but sensible crones, as Kat called them, made use of modern science. They slid between the cool, dry sheets as Jessica retrieved the slender bottle of personal lubricant from the bedside table. I love this stuff. Kat grinned. So do I. When I'm in the mood, I do like to be wet. And when you're wet, Jessica gently spread the lube over Kat with sure fingers. You're in the mood. I should ensure your hands. Jessica kissed the lips curved in a fond smile, then pressed more firmly with her fingertips. Kat's response was quite gratifying. A few whispered words, and they were moving together, sweet and easy, not forcing the tide, but letting it rise to wash over them. The motion of the ship lulled them into a soft pace, and kisses were long and languid until they were panting more than they were kissing. Touching you like this is my very favorite thing, Jessica whispered. Kat's shivers were so familiar. I'm glad, because if it wasn't, you should have said so before this. She pulled Jessica down for a wet, deep kiss, and delightful muscles gripped at Jessica's fingers until Kat gasped for breath and made that wonderful sound. Jessica went in a little deeper, drawing out every bit of response she could. Finally, Kat relaxed and laughed. God, that's fun. Well, if it wasn't, you should have said so before this. Oh, foo. Is that the best you can do? Got no brains at the moment? Oh, foo. There's supposed to be chocolate at dinner. Kat abruptly wiggled and pushed until Jessica found herself on her back. We'll get there, but there's something else I'd rather eat first. Jessica grinned. Do you have a reservation? Kat quickly slipped her hips between Jessica's thighs, then deftly tickled the sensitive patch along her underarm. While Jessica struggled and laughed, Kat continued her downward journey until the laughter faded, and there was only the intimate exploration of Kat's tongue, where Jessica never tired of feeling it. Today would be one of those times when she didn't climax, but the soothing, relaxing pleasure of Kat's attention left her feeling a glow that would last for hours. It was a different kind of sex for her, and as meaningful to her at this age as other kinds had been when she was younger. There was a moment she reached when it felt as if Kat had filled her to overflowing and she could take no more. It didn't matter that certain muscles no longer spasmed as easily, not when she reveled in the heat of Kat's mouth, feeling the wonder of it in all the places only Kat had ever reached. She laughed low and stopped Kat with a soft gesture. They smiled over the length of Jessica's body. Better than a hot tub. Two beautifully arched eyebrows disappeared under Kat's bangs. I should hope so. We smell a bit funky now. I like it. Kat's breathing quickly steadied, and Jessica decided another 10 minutes wouldn't matter to whatever was served for dinner. Kat was warm and safe in her arms. Someone else might think that they'd sleep together later, so why give up a unique experience in favor of one? They could have any old night. Then again, some people didn't get it. Older women, they do it too.
Only in the lesbian community would a debate over poetry actually be considered foreplay.
Exactly.
I don't know how I always end up going after. I'm either always sitting with Brad here and you, and then I'm supposed to read, and then I have this smile on my face that